Fantastic. Well, hello everybody. Welcome. This is Monica, Empower Your Health, Empower Your Life TV. And I just want to thank everybody who is watching on live and who's watching the recording. I so appreciate your time, your presence here. It means so much to me. Those programs are for you. And what we do on Empower Your Life, Empower Your Health TV is we introduce and interview powerful leaders, community builders, healers, influencers, people who bring value to individuals and communities around them. And today we have a special edition of our program, Empower Your Money. Because, you know, if you're anything like me, a lay person who maybe doesn't know much about money, we're faced with very transitional times, I like to call them. There's a lot of upheaval in the financial markets. Things are happening. So you may be asking yourself, what do I do with my money? Maybe you've been saving for your retirement. Maybe you've been saving for your kids' college fund. You've put money into mutual funds and now you're wondering, well, what should I do? Should I just panic and sell it all? Should I go find somebody to help me? Where do I get help? And really, is it possible to even know what's happening? Is there anybody who does know? So I decided to invite somebody who does know and who's going to answer your questions. And not just that, who's going to, I believe, bring us more sanity and understanding of what's going on, and also give us financial plan, a strategy, tools, and skills, and to actually respond to what's going on the financial markets right now, and to start to actually be more empowered in how we deal with the finances, faced with this tremendous time that's happening. And maybe it is also a time of opportunity. So how about we open ourselves to that? So the special guest we have today, who I know will bring incredible value to all of you listeners, is Robert Gil. Robert Gil is somebody who probably does not need introduction to this community. He is a tremendous asset to the unblinded community. And you may know, Robert is an experienced financial professional of 21 years. He is the founder and the driving force behind the philosophy of Epic Wealth Management group that he has built, and his philosophy, his approach is the driving force behind it. And the process that he developed is something that he and his team use with all their clients. And what I want to mention also, that Robert, he is very proud of the life he built for himself, for his family, with his wife, Janice, and his 3 beautiful kids. He also is a outstanding philanthropist, somebody who I feel lives in service to his community. And that's my sense of Rob, that he really lives to contribute and be in service. And so he contributes to healthcare initiatives in his communities. He contributes to education. He self-funds multiple scholarships for youth and students, including economically disadvantaged students. So his impact on the world and his impact on his communities, on his ecosystems, is tremendous. So you can only imagine how honored I am to have him on this show. And I want to add some very important pieces here to introduce Rob. He is, he started his journey with Tony Robbins. And he is, again, a very powerful member of Tony Robbins' community, and a platinum partner. And within that community of Tony Robbins, there was a powerful ecosystem merger that happened. That's where Rob met Sean Callaghy. And in his words, Rob feels that Sean Callaghy blew life and gave action and gave language to what Rob has been learning and studying already. So he considers Sean his mentor, his first dancer, his greatest supporter. And as you all know, that ecosystem merging between Rob and Sean is something that I feel impacts all of our lives within the unblinded community. And I would believe him outside of this community too, far and wide. And so I see Rob as, and that's probably a topic for another conversation. Rob is a wizard of ecosystem merging. He's another powerful partner is Chris Cron, who is a YouTube influencers, media influencers, and real estate investor. And I believe he has 50,000 YouTube followers, which is incredible, or if I'm not wrong. And
500,000.
5,000. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. So, you know, this is beyond my mind. So this is, I apologize. And so, yay. So, you know, I'm introducing you to somebody who really is, you know, an outstanding, incredible individual. And I'm so honored to have him here. I know he will breathe new life into your understanding of finances. Well, so without much further ado, hello, Rob. Again, my extreme gratitude to you for being here, for honoring us with your presence, and welcome. So tell us what's on your mind.
So Monica, first of all, that was one of the greatest introductions ever. Thank you so much, and I want to honor you. I want to honor you for reaching out to me and you know, asking for this week. And I'm the one that's really blessed. And thank you so much. And I just want to create a little bit of a timeline clarity.
Yes.
And then just kind of get into the way I think is the best way to view not only our current situation, but how to view things going forward in the whole financial mosaic, you know, all across the board. So first and foremost, I happened to meet Sean Callaghy. I went to Tony Robbins' event in July 2017, and that was in Newark, New Jersey. And I jumped around a little bit. I hugged a couple of people. I took the notebook home. I did a little bit of work for 5 days, and I was feeling really excited and motivated. And by the time we got to mid to late August, I already went back into my rhythm that I had been in for the last 10 years. And during that 10 years, we at Epic have had good success on a local level. It wasn't explosive as it is now. But at that point, you know, I kind of went right back into my normal status quo. And then September of 17, I went to an event where there was a bunch of doctors, and Sean Callaghy happened to be speaking at that event as an attorney from a standpoint of Callaghy Law, and they were very successful in recovering revenue for physicians, and this was in New Jersey. And as a result of that, when they introduced him, my first, and keep in mind, I tell this story, but I want this to go out there, I didn't even want to go to the event. And a couple of good friends of mine, Mark Hayden and a couple other doctors had said, you know, you should come see this event. You should see Sean speak. He's a really good speaker. And from that standpoint, I went to see him speak, and all of a sudden I saw an attorney that had 2 litigation, I don't want to say settlements, jury convictions for $27 and $33 million. And I was like, wow, this guy must be a really good attorney. And from that standpoint, I was impressed just from the pure numbers. But then when he started to speak, I began to hear the language of Tony. I didn't know Sean was a student at that point of Tony for about 18, 19, 20 years, but I heard the language. And in that instant moment, I realized that he was the living proof of what Tony was teaching. He was putting a language to what I was seeking. And I had been, I had been looking for this. And Dr. Falia, he also sat next to me that night and demanded that I go to that dinner. It was Mark Cadden that demanded me to go to the next dinner, just to kind of get the sequence in order. So major shout out to Doc Falia. This one's for you, brother. So as I began to hear Sean speak, when I look back on it today, I see the manifestation and the dots connected. So from that point on until January, I was trying my best to secure a meeting with Sean, and his ability to duck and move and evade and everything else, I couldn't get a meeting with him. And finally in January, this was 4 months later, I went to one of his practice mastery events, and it was in Paramus at Capitol Grill. And there was probably 70 people in a room that can only fit 30. And you know, when I look at it now, I realize that there was a movement that begun. We now know that movement is unblinded, just so we're all on the same page. So it wasn't until March that he came to my office right here in Red Bank, New Jersey. And at the time we were working with a professional athlete, which I didn't tell Sean. And when he saw that we had those kind of relationships, that I was bringing forces together, and at that point, if you understand the Tony Robbins model, Tony Robbins, one of the things that he had done from his stage was talk about creative planning, which is a registered investment advisory, an RIA. Now, I am not a fiduciary. However, the RIA that is connected with Epic Insurance Services, we have 5 different fiduciaries. We have Janice Gill. We have John Spring, who's a CFP. We have Kelly Cole, who is an investment genius in the space of relationship and connecting the dots between our investment committee and the client. We have Dave Harder, we have Patrick Weeks, and we have Eddie Gartner. So in that space of wealth management, fiduciary, must doing the best interest for the client, we built that the same way that Tony talked about in his book, Money Masters of the Game, the way creative planning. What we do have that creative doesn't, at least from our standpoint, is we have a whole insurance division, which is Epic Insurance Services, which is my division. And that ranges from everything from life insurance for individuals and business owners, because there's business planning strategies you could do through utilizing life insurance. That's another conversation for another day. Disability insurance, health insurance, P&C insurance. We parted up for medical malpractice insurance. So we have all these different divisions, and we have experts in each part of that division. So when I met with Sean in March of 2018, which is 6 months after I saw him speak, I put my time in, TIME, things I must earn, right? There's my first acronym, things I must earn. My relationship that day started with Sean. I immediately I asked if he would be partners of mine. He said no. But then said, you could speak every time I do a practice mastery event on the stage, which I did. And for about a year, these were like 5-7 minute presentations. We began to get a little bit of momentum. And I like to tie Sean and Chris into this space because, shortly after March of 2018, if I fast forward to November, Sean one day, seemingly out of nowhere for me, started talking about merging ecosystems, which I had no idea what he was talking about. It was like above my head. A lot of things are above my head. So just kidding. So he started talking about merging ecosystems, and I just started saying it. I didn't even know what it meant. As silly as that sounds, I didn't realize that it was different language. It was higher energetic language to create frictionless business. And that's exactly what began to happen. But every time I look back 6 months, our business becomes even more frictionless than the 6 months before that. So it's an incredible evolution. During this time, I began to study more of Tony. And at the same time, I really began to study Sean's integrity-based human influence model, right? The unblinded, what we're talking about, unblinded, and there's process mastery, self-mastery, and influence mastery. Fast forward to March of 2017, Sean had a beta version of Unblinded for 3 days. There was about 15 or 20 of us in a room. The whole time he was in that room, he was talking about Chris Crone. To your point, Chris Crone has 500,000 YouTube subscribers, has events on a quarterly basis, and has built a stellar community of folks that just want to do business with him, and he creates breakthroughs at his events. He does a phenomenal job in his own right. And the magic for Rob Gill, when I look at Sean Callaghan and Chris Crone, I look at Tony Robbins, I'm surrounded by like just unbelievable scientific proven winner achievers. You look at Sean, one of the, those jury verdicts that I just talked about, 27 and 33 million in 2014, 2016, what was wildly impressive, he was one of 2 attorneys out of 1.2 million attorneys in the country that did that. Think about that. One of 2 attorneys that had those verdicts in the country twice in 2014, 2016, out of 1.2 million. And by the way, at that point, his side hustle was peak performance coaching. I want you to think about that. Like, just imagine that. Let that land. As a side hustle, he was a peak performance coach while maintaining a law firm with over 120 employees, and at the same time getting national verdicts that just blew him, just put him on the map and then some. So as Sean progressed through the Tony Robbins ecosystem, because I was his first answer, to your point, people began to recognize me because I was connected to Sean even before we met.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful. I really am for everything that Sean has done for us. So March of 2019, I had met Chris at a Tony Robbins event 3 months before that. He was taking notes at a Date with Destiny like a lunatic, really engaged. At that point, I knew who he was because Sean would talk about him all the time. So I was kind of like, hey, you know, just trying to talk to him a little bit, but really staying in my lane and really valuing what I was learning. March of 2019, Chris and Sean were on to another venture. And during that 3-day webinar, that 3-day seminar that Sean had, Peak Performance Success Workshop that I like to call it, the integrity-based human influence model with the Caligie results formula, formerly now known as Unblinded with the lightning bolt. Ed Gartner came up to me and said, hey, look at this. And he showed me something on YouTube where Chris Crone was talking about life insurance. So let's talk a little bit about brain science, right? Let's talk a little bit about saber-tooth tiger. Sean always loves to say that I still have the saber-tooth tiger in my head all the time.
Yes.
What I like to say, just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean people aren't out to get you. So there's a balance there. So I looked at this video and Chris was talking about the importance in overall planning how to use life insurance. And my first reaction was, wow, I can't believe he's doing this with somebody already. Like that was one of my, if you look at the goals that I wrote out in 2017, there was a portion, my team knows it, that exactly what he was doing, I wanted to partner with somebody like that. So my first gut reaction was I'm too late to the game. Like I felt like it's, you know, wow, we just missed an opportunity. Shortly thereafter, Chris and I spoke and we just connected on a high level and we were just pinging back and forth. And like within a week, myself, him and Sean formed a partnership at Epic. And from there, what began to happen is we began to drive traffic. Chris began to drive traffic educationally only through his YouTube channel to Epic while we were still doing a lot of the face-to-face seminars with Sean, and that was driving traffic. And that is really the new version of Epic that really began to take off in March of 2019, which was a year ago today, a year ago this month, I should say. So I wanted just to clarify that story. I want everyone to know that it didn't happen overnight. If you look at the day I went to Tony in 2017 to today, and then the things that came together, relationship capital, but also maintaining relationship capital through the ups and downs is so important.
Yes.
And when we talk about the integrity-based human influence model, which by the way, is a map that everybody should use. I mean, in my opinion, it just gives you the ability to build rapport. I don't want to get into it because you could talk about it for an hour, but we know the 5 questions: where you've been, where you are, where you're going, what are your successes and what are your challenges, right? And do a lot of listening in that 45 minutes. And then in the space of what are your challenges, have the permission to create some painful questions that the person should ask themselves based on what you're discovering in that conversation. And in that pain, ask for the permission to come in with maybe a strategy or a cure by, you know, creating your unique heroic identity. And you know, some people might have their own unique heroic identity, but some people who belong to Epic, they may use Epic as their unique heroic identity. I'm just using our company as an example, but this could translate into anything you do. And then from there, you know, you go into a formation agreement, which could be another meeting, which could be a ecosystem merger, which could be a way of doing business, and understanding the indispensable elements that are in there, which we know are smaller QVC. That's the only way I can memorize it. I'm going to give a major shout out to Darcy Weber for that. Smaller being, you know, scarcity as a way to communicate with somebody, you know, monitoring, matching and mirroring. You know, so if you're going to talk fast, I'll talk fast. If you're going to talk low, I'll talk low. If you're sad about something, I will acknowledge that. I'll have empathy with that, and hopefully create together, shoulder to shoulder, a strategy on how to break through the disempowering belief and replace it with an empowering belief, right? And everyone might be saying, well, what does that have to do with financial planning? Well, it's all connected, I promise, because, you know, it's really about having clear thinking and understanding there's a lot of noise. Some of it's real, some of it's not, that's around us. but being resourceful, you know, so if we could acknowledge, you know, scarcity, matching, mirror, and acknowledgement, love everybody, level 5 listening,
Yes.
energetic transportation, putting our hand on somebody as we're communicating, transfer that energy. And each one of these elements have their own 30, 40, 50-minute story. Reciprocity, if I like you, you'll like me. If I give you a gift, you'll give me. That's just a simple theory inside the sandbox. Question everything. Well, why do you feel that way? Tony Robbins says that he's not a motivational guy, he's the why guy. Why do you feel that way? What happened that makes you feel that way? What can you do differently? You know, what if you did this and why would it make you feel that? Like, so the why guy is really about questioning everything, and then validating, and then congruence. What I like to call congruence of energy, which is Tony's triad. The triad is what state do you show up in? So what's your morning ritual, right? What words are you focusing on in your mind, and what language are you using to focus on those words, right? All this is important. You know, we know that according to Tony's research, there's 75,000 words in the dictionary. We know that 4,000 are tied to emotions and 75% are negative. As an average human, we may use in our lifetime 2,500 words, and daily about 250 words. So those words, and Sean talks about this all the time, have energy. So your 250 words that you use every day, they have to be empowering, energetic, transformational. And if you don't have them, replace them with that. Because that leads to good, conscious, sober thinking and sober decision making in anything you do in any part of your life. So I just wanted to start with that. And then, you know, do you have any questions or you want me to pivot off to some other things, please let me know.
Yes, I mean, this is fantastic. You gave us so much in this short time. The ecosystem merging, super, I would say like a bullet pill of like giving us, how do you merge ecosystems? Persistence, knowing what you want, knowing what you're after, understanding the value of people, and just going forward. It took a year, it took a long time, but you did not stop and you were persistent. And I think that actually has everything to do with financial planning too, I would suspect. And thank you for you know, giving us this wonderful overview of the unblinded formula, because yes, that is a powerful tool and a powerful approach, and actually a powerful lifestyle, the way I'm thinking about it. And again, I suspect that also has everything to do with financial planning. So just a side note, we have people watching here on YouTube, on Facebook Live. So please drop your questions if you have any, or you also will be able to connect with Rob, I believe via email, or we'll share that later. But again, thank you so much for bringing so much value already. And so tell us, what does this have to do with financial planning?
So thank you for sharing that. So when you look about merging ecosystems, right, the first thing that we tried to do as we developed our relationship with Sean and Chris and you know, Mark Cadden and Brian Hanahan and Mario and Dan Asani and you know, a lot of people that we have relationships with right now, Dr. Bufano, that's what I call him, is really give as much as we can. And giving might not necessarily mean money. It's time, it's information, it's relationship, it's being visible, it's being present, it's being supportive. And there's a fine line with expectation management in that space, because you know, when I think of how we got here today, and I think back to a client, friend, partner, you know, any way you want to slice it, it all comes down to really the relationship in the ups and downs, communication at a high level, and being able to be present. So let's talk a little bit about financial planning. Financial planning isn't just about diversifying a portfolio. Now, I'm not here to give any stock recommendations. I'm not here to give portfolio recommendations. I can tell you how we view things on our side, and the importance of how to take that relationship and that decision making to the next step. I always believe that if you look at the wealthiest of the wealth, they typically, not in all cases, have their financial planner, their insurance agent, their attorneys, and their accountants all on the same page. And what I mean by that is just picture this table right here. If the client is here, the client would always want their professionals to agree and be on the same page for what the client should do next. And then the client ultimately makes the decision, right? So part of that decision-making process has to be sober thinking, has to be realistic thinking, and has to be based on full education of all of the different products that are out there today, their advantages and disadvantages, and there's many. And then where they are in the life cycle of investing. So for example, right now, we're in winter, right? The market has gone down from its high to, I think yesterday or the day before, at least the Dow was down close to 10,000 points, if not 10,000 points at one point in 30 days. That's a mammoth pullback. It's one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. And when winter's here, the question is, what cycle are you, the individual? Where are you at? So if somebody's 35 versus somebody that's 65, those are two different scenarios. You know, if I have a 23-year-old kid over here, and if I have a 55-year-old guy over here, and the market just went down 10,000 points, these are two different separate conversations. The principle is make sure that you're informed, make sure you're educated, make sure that your professionals are on the same page for the benefit of you. The I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and you're keeping up with all the changes that are happening, not only in the market, but tax law change, estate planning change, business planning change, all the different changes that are out there. You got to make sure that that's always on point, right? With that being said, though, I think that in the end, there should be a visual scorekeeper. You should be able to kind of have a toolbox that you're able to see, so you can see where all of your different parts of your financial life are connected on the same page, connected to all the financial institutions. So the decisions that you ultimately make are based on logic, math, and science, not emotional timidity, not a gut level hunch because Johnny said, hey, you should buy this stock. It went from 3 to 6 and it's going to rebound because the market's going to go up once somebody comes up with a cure or once somebody comes up with a vaccine for coronavirus. He goes, listen, you might get a stock that goes from 10 to 30, buy and sell. What is your short-term capital gains? Is that a realistic mindset going forward? And there's some people out there that'll do it, but you know, we like to plan for the long term. We like to be able to make sure that we understand the downside because there's a lot more pain and loss than joy and gain. And we want to make sure that our thinking is sober at all times by having accountability partners that keep us in check.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you so much. I just want to mention that Sean Callaghy actually joined the live. Welcome. Very excited about that. We were just talking about Sean.
What's up, Source?
There we go. So please, again, ask questions. Well, I'm watching here.
Am I able to see questions? I don't see any. So
I'm not sure. We're on live. So,
okay.
You know, I actually, here we go. I am watching. Here we go. You should be able to. I am watching the questions. So if anything pops up, I'm going to definitely ask for you guys. Great.
Awesome.
Got it? Yeah, I see you are on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we really, I think you're emphasizing the importance of logical thinking and surrounding yourself with people who can be of help, you know, who are professional. And really, I believe there's a huge part of it is self-mastery. So we don't just follow the emotions or the, you know, instinctual kind of a feeling like going this or there, because that's where you fall into chaos. And that's where, you know, panic starts. So how can you say if somebody's really in the dark right now? Like, I want to share an example, you know, with, I called my mom a couple of days ago and I asked her what she was doing and what she's been doing. And she said, you know what, I went to the bank and I just sold all my investments because everybody's selling. And I'm like, wow, I wish we spoke about it before. But I feel like a lot of people are doing that. You know, they see the crowds around them and they are told to just do the same thing. So what words of advice can you offer?
You know, we had a team meeting yesterday, and the main part of the conversation was that we have to be out there communicating with not only our clients, that's a given, but other people that just need to hear what's going on. And in a vacuum, I don't know anything about your mom's investments, but any kind of, and I'm just going to speak globally when I say this, not specific, but any kind of just selling, I think is always never the right thing to do, unless there's a full information. And I don't think anyone wants to sell when the market's 10,000 points lower than it was 30 days before. And usually when that happens, it's not out of logic, although this is a very emotional time, and we can't not talk about that, but it's typically done out of fear, right? So when we think of saber-tooth tiger, when we think of fear, when we think of understanding that fear creates a scarcity mindset typically shuts off your energetic waves and just kind of keeps you in your body. And the decisions that you make are really decisions that aren't really well thought out, typically speaking, right? So when I find myself in those positions, and I do find myself, listen, my brain is 2 million years old, right? It's been in my body for 49 years. I grew up, in the 70s. I was born in the 70s. So I have that kind of thinking in my background, 70s, 80s, and 90s. But now I'm in a world of 2020 where technology is about to put nanobytes in my bloodstream so I can connect to the cloud, right? So technology is taking a step in a direction that I couldn't even comprehend 20 years ago. So every day my brain is trained on its thoughts for my whole 49 years. So I always got to challenge every single morning my thinking that I wake up, because that's when I'm sleeping. That's where all those fearful thoughts come into play, or those negative thoughts. So when I wake up, I got to go through my process, and I try my best at all times to ask myself a different question. And when not like, why does this always happen to me? Because I've had those questions. And then my brain is going to tell me all the reasons why in my 49 years, all bad things happen to me. And then I'm going to reinforce in my nervous system negative thoughts, right? Or fearful thoughts, right? Versus, hey, what can I learn from this, right? So right now, anyone that is really struggling about understanding money, they're feeling that feeling because the rug just got pulled out.
Yes.
So the question is, what are you going to learn from this? Enjoy the process going forward and creating resourceful opportunities that are in line with your core values. These are the questions you have to ask yourself. So over the next 3, 5, 10 years, by having sober thinking, proper questions, when this happens again, when winter comes again, you're fully prepared.
Yes.
So you can't do nothing about what happened in the last 30 days. If you stay in that space, you've already lost. Second part is, who are you communicating with? Who are you talking to about this stuff? Because if they're doing the same thing you're doing under fearful, scarcity mindset type of questions, it's going to reinforce to you why you made the right decision.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's important to get with people that are going to tell you the truth and create maps for proven winners over global investing strategies, not just diversifying, right? And in that space of understanding that, I think you could shift and change momentum and stay on a different trajectory. But this other trajectory is based on education. It's based on what is your investment philosophy? How do you plan? And along the way, how do you rebalance everything in your world as you're taking each next step? And by the way, it's, once again, it's different for a 70-year-old person than it would be for a 35-year-old person, right? Because even though globally we're in winter, there's people out there right now that are in summer and fall. Exactly. And they're harvesting. There's people that are harvesting right now.
Yes.
So, and that's just the way it is. So, that's the best way I could answer that. I think it has to become a shift in consciousness, awareness of the questions that you're asking yourself, being able to replace a disempowering question, one that creates scarcity, into an empowering question, one that creates abundance. It's very important to have empathy with people. It's not just about Zeus energy. It's not just about goddess energy. It's about goddess, Zeus, aspirational and fun. Through education, right? Through being there, being held accountable, being there for your conversation, being able to hold hands, being able to educate, validate your education. And by the way, you can look at history. History is by no means guarantees future results. As far as I'm concerned, if I look at the last 200 years, maybe 180 years of all the different economic challenges that came our way, whether it was the Civil War, whether it was the Spanish-American War, World War I, whether it was the last pandemic, the Spanish flu of 1918 or 19, which by the way, technology is different now than it was then. And the recovery now, just my opinion, I'm not a doctor, so don't take my word for it, but I do believe that we will get out of this a lot faster than what had happened 100 years ago because of, just technology and different education. But if you look at the Spanish flu, World War, the Roaring 20s, the Depression of the 30s, World War II, Vietnam, Korean War, stock market crash of 73, hyperinflation in 1980. I remember I was 9, 10 years old, and my dad, we were going to get gas, and the cars were around the corner to get gas. This happened, and that changed how we viewed oil, right? If you look at Black Monday of 1987, if you look at the first ground war in Iraq in 1990, then there was the Asian contagion of 1997. That's what they called it. The Dow went from like 12,000 to 7,000 in 6 weeks. If you look at, this was a big deal because when I was first on Wall Street, I used to get, the guy that was cutting my hair, I don't know if you remember the internet stocks, but he would give me stock recommendations at 13 that went to 300. I mean, that was just insane, right? So when you look at that crash, and that did happen in March of 2000, right after the government sued Microsoft, which by the way, began Apple's next run. And Apple went on a magnificent run from 2000 until present, right? Then we had the black swan event of 9/11, which this reminds me of a little bit. We also had the crisis of '08. All of those different dates and times I just mentioned, during those times, millionaires and billionaires are created. Sober thinking people that invest to a philosophy for the long term and understand taxation, understand how to put together strategies with their planners and proper planning. They are proven winners, and they stand the test of time, and it's out there. And it just requires a couple of deep breaths, consistent approach, and awareness. Don't be scared to listen. A lot of people say, I don't want to open up my statement. I don't want to look at it because, that fear may make them react in one way or another. I think it's important to look and see where you're at. I think it's important to see where you're at and what are all the positive things that you have right now. And it's not all about money. It's about resourcefulness. It's about relationships. It's about merging ecosystems. It's about, there's a reset going on. Let me get clear. Let me figure out what my next couple of steps going forward are. Let me build momentum. And by the way, things will change. And when they change, let me stay humble. And let me never forget this feeling. If I never forget this feeling and I use this as a turbocharger moving forward, then I'll never make the same mistake twice. Assuming this.
This is very powerful, what you're sharing, and the importance of the long view. And what you say, it's not all about money because, we exist in ecosystems and there's a lot of different values and parts of this ecosystem beyond money that are of incredible value. And if we take this time as a reset and step back and take a deep breath and start to really look at what's ahead of me, how do I want to use this information, not just, for the next few months, but actually building my lifelong legacy, I believe, and really working on creating more knowledge and understanding of the financial markets, of how to deal with the situation in a broader perspective, like you brought right now, looking at it historically as well, educating yourself, surrounding yourself with the right people. These are powerful strategies. I want to really acknowledge that you're not just talking about the money right now. You're really talking about how do we respond to times of transition, how we harvest even in the winter, using that as a resource to educate, to build ourselves up. and to actually, in the long run, we benefit because we learn, because we educate, because we build ecosystems. Yeah, I feel like people are coming closer together in many ways because we all need help right now. Yeah. And just looking at the comments here, Erica has an interesting question. Vivian, just really quickly, she's saying, love you, Rob. Thank you, Vivian, for watching.
I love you too, Vivian. Thank you.
Awesome. Erica has an interesting question. She's asking, how do you choose accountability partners?
Great. Erica, you are a lightning rod. You are a powerful example of how to take a complete turnaround. I know you shared some information with me privately, and I want to thank you for that. You know, that's a great question. And when I saw Sean, I knew right away that he was source. For me, for Rob Gill. I could only speak for me. I would never speak for somebody else. And I knew that he represented to me the truth. So when I began, and I did it not knowingly, but I began to model him, and I didn't realize that I was modeling the best of the best, right? And as I further read more Tony's stuff, he talked about, don't just model anybody, you want to model the best, right? So being coached by Sean, let me be very clear, one of the greatest gifts of my life, and at the same time, one of the biggest emotional challenges. But the standard that he creates is so high that as I modeled him, it forced me to level up. Same thing with Chris. When I look at what Chris does, I mean, these guys, these are winners in what they do. Sean and Chris are winners in two separate ways, but they both forced me to level up in ways that as I was visualizing my future, I didn't visualize that part of it, but when it showed up, I didn't say no. So I assume right now, Erica, that you're putting out so much energy, people are showing up to you. I think it's important that you understand who they are, and I don't know who they are. This is for you to decide. And make sure you're really honest about, does that person have what I want? With integrity, am I willing to do what it takes? And I think the teacher will show up, especially if you're looking. And there could be a couple of them. The best way I can answer that. And if you have another follow-up question, please ask.
Yes, please, you guys, you're really welcome to ask questions. Rob is going to answer them. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And so how do you see yourself right now working with clients and helping people at this moment?
You know, right now, the biggest thing that we're doing is being good listeners.
Yeah.
Right? You can't solve anyone's problem today. You can't solve anyone's challenge today from an action standpoint as far as, hey, do this and do that. What you can do is be a very good listener to where they're at. But once you get a better understanding, because somebody might have X amount in the market versus somebody else. Mm-hmm. So those are different conversations. So in a vacuum, I can't answer that question specifically other than, mm-hmm. Let the team take a deep dive into your current situation. Mm-hmm. Let them give you an honest evaluation. Show you where you've been, where you are now, what you could do going forward if you made some changes or if you rebalance and what that would look like. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are good. If anybody has private questions, my team would be more than willing mm-hmm. to go over with no obligation, any kind of free audits for anybody out there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that offer. Please take advantage of it. I'm sure you're asking yourself all those questions, and it's so important to have the right person look into what the situation is and where you can take it forward. So, so you will be talking a lot about the long view, and honestly, how where do you see us going forward with this whole situation? And the role of financial planners and wealth managers?
Yep, another great question. So as you know, I'm not a doctor. I joke around and we call ourselves mm-hmm. financial doctors, that we do financial PR. But I think when we look back on this time, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, I think it would be an example of don't panic when something else hits us in the future. Because I do believe good, sober thinking. I do believe that people doing their parts with spatial distancing, I forget what they call it. I think it's, everyone staying 6 feet apart.
Social, yes.
Yeah, spatial, social distancing. I think that obviously is the short-term challenge that everybody has to get through. I believe in San Francisco and New York City, they're going to take some serious action steps to close a lockdown. But I believe that going forward, if there's proper planning and I think jobs will come back fast. I don't know, I don't know how it works in the restaurants or the bar, bartending and Uber and all that other stuff, but I do believe this too shall pass. And staying healthy, being resourceful, working out, meditating, being action oriented, being there, supportive, contributing, serving other people. I think these things really add to a power shift and or trajectory shift that will lead to really good things. And I think when we look back on this moment, once again, this is my opinion. I'm not offering any recommendations. I do think there will be generational buying opportunities. That's one individual's opinion that is not soliciting any business in that space. Just having a conversation.
Yes, thank you. And using this time to reset and to take care of yourself. And I believe practice self-mastery.
Yes.
This is an amazing opportunity for that. And there you go. We have a question for Vivian Guzman. And so she's asking, as more people are possibly on the brink of unemployment and don't have the mindset or technology and digital skill sets, or how can you possibly broach what to do when homelessness is possibly looming? What do you advise people?
Vivian, that's a wonderful question. If I could tackle the homelessness part, meaning if somebody still lives somewhere and they would, I find that it would be hard right now to throw somebody out into the street versus someone that's already in the street. I get what you're saying. So I think those are two different parts of the question, if I could just kind of add that. But I believe, look, I think what you're saying to me, and I think you're right, Rob, that's great that, you have great mentors around you, right? But not everybody has that.
Yes.
And, I think for me, I grew up blue collar. My dad worked 3 jobs. We never had any money. Family that we lived in a 2-family house. We lived on a 2nd floor. And I always seeked more. And I think that there's people that seek growth. And I think some people just don't. So whether economies are good or not, there's still homelessness. There is. I mean, that's just the truth. So as I got closer to the Sean's and Chris's, it was really after I put my time in and did a lot of my own research on YouTube. And that's how I found Tony Robbins, actually. But I was watching Ed Milet this morning, who's really good on YouTube. And he happened to be in the insurance space at one point in his life. And when he was 21 years old, the model at the company he worked for was phone calls. And he said, well, why don't I just knock on people's doors and go into their house? And they all laughed at him. And then they said, okay, you could do it. But then they played another trick on him and said, when you knock on the door, the first thing I want you to say is, I'm not here to sell you life insurance, which is not the way to do it. And he said, everybody said no, except for one person. And then one person brought him in and he sold insurance. And they always say the man with the most endurance or the woman with the most endurance is the one that sells insurance. So, because there is guarantees in those products that, by the way, when you see a market like this, there's a flight to quality in that space. But with that being said, what Ed's point was this, and maybe this may answer your question. What Ed basically said is he then went back to all the people, because a lot of them didn't have a job, and he recruited them into the insurance industry. What I can tell you, 30 years later, 20 years later, he sold this company for $500 million. So there's jobs out there. It's full commission jobs. It's not salary jobs. Sean Callaghan says the best when he says, no one's going to come rescue you, meaning you got to do your part first. And even in the Bible, it says faith without works is dead. The good news is, I'll finish with this. The good news is that while we're in reset mode and everything is stopping, the thing that's still active is Facebook, YouTube, internet, and there's information out there. This cell phone right here has more information today than the whole world may have had in 1950.
Yeah, we have resources. Vivian says she agreed. Thank you, Vivian, for a great question. And please, guys, if you have more questions, please post them because we're here for you. And so resiliency, but also appreciating how much resources we have right now. I think we live in unprecedented times where we can connect even with social distancing, even stuck at home. We still are merging ecosystems. We still have this incredible gift and wealth of technology that actually is really affordable, and it's really easy, like us together, right, talking right now and inviting you to learn and to educate ourselves. So I actually remain very grateful, and I think I feel that about you too, you know, that we can go into our heart and say, wow, what do I actually have? I have a lot. I have a lot of wealth and richness that is available at my fingertips, so to say. So, and with this said, but you know, I know we're talking about keeping the high spirit and surrounding ourselves with powerful people and influences, seeking them out in the virtual space. Where do you feel are the challenges for you as wealth manager right now?
My team member, I'm not a wealth manager.
Or yes,
Epic
I'm sorry.
I'm an Epic Insurance, but here's the challenge.
Yes, I apologize.
Here's the challenge. Every once in a while, you know, people, like, because we're so conservative in that space, we're not really chasing right now. And we get calls every once in a while where somebody says, hey, I want to dump in X amount of money. And, you know, because the market's real, like, got people that have seen the market rebound, they want to like put everything in on Tuesday and sell it by Friday. It's a challenge in that space because we don't do that. And having those conversations are challenging from the wealth management side. From the cash flow side, where people are now beginning to kind of take a little step back right now because they don't know what's going to happen over the next 2 or 3 weeks, and being able to kind of manage people's cash flow expectation and at the same time hold their hand and talk through some of the emotional challenges that are very real and very present. You know what I mean? Like, this is real. Like, this is real. You know, some people are saying you're going to be locked up for 6 months. Some people are saying you're going to be locked up for a month. Some people are looking at Italy. But then you know, on the other side, you're looking at South Korea and China, which by all accounts, I think it's kind of stemmed itself. You know, the bleeding has stopped over there. So dealing with those uncertainties and the emotion tied to it, that's definitely a challenge. And those conversations, which may have taken 10 or 15 minutes in the past, these conversations are more like 90 minutes. So our days are longer as far as the time that we have, and we're working Saturdays, Sundays, and 7 days a week. Just from that standpoint, I'd say that would be the biggest challenge. You know, the good news is the people that we do business with have already been decentralized, so the flow of business isn't stopping. It's just the human interaction where everyone's in different spots. You know, on our team, you know, we had to do we're doing our meetings over the phone right now. That's a little bit challenging.
Wow. Yeah, I think that what I'm hearing is a lot of that handling of people's emotions. That you kind of have to become a psychologist in a way, or a therapist at the same time as you are.
Financial doctor.
Yes, financial doctor. You know, let me ask you this. So we are going through these times of transition. We don't know what's going to happen. Times of huge challenge, but also huge opportunity, I feel. In like your biggest dream and your most heartfelt vision, where do you see us as humanity, as our society, or where do you see us if we were to go through this time And if you were to put that in the context of your most positive and empowering and encouraging vision, where do you see us going from here?
That's a beautiful question, and thank you so much. I think what I would historically look at the past, and just tell her on the phone. I would historically look at the past in wartime, post-war recoveries on how humanity acted with each other as a reference. I'll use that first because they keep saying that, you know, that Trump is more a wartime president now based on what's happening. So I would look at the human behavior after World War I, after World War II. And that's one of the things I would look at. Because I think both sides of the aisle right now are kind of working together in ways that I don't think we've seen in the last 20 or 30 years, right? Mm-hmm. That's my first thing. So I think that there's going to be, you know, paradigm shifts in business. I think business is going to be done a little bit differently. I don't think there's going to be like the end of you know, New York City or San Francisco or California. What I think is going to happen is that the way business is run can have a little bit of a different approach. I think some of the companies that we did business with after Sandy hit New Jersey, they decentralized, right? So I think we're going to see more decentralized in business. And I also believe that I think in the end, the human community is so important because we always want to be around each other. I believe that this is going to produce better relationships. You know, I think once again, when we get past it, to maintain those relationships require better communication, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't know who's going to keep the world accountable for that. But in a perfect world, right? Yeah. Unblinded, yeah.
Yes, go unblinded.
Yes. So I think from that standpoint, maybe not as much defensiveness, saber-tooth tiger, a willingness to listen to each other, maybe communicate better, be really distinct, create all the distinctions in your communication, make sure there's a clarify and verify a full understanding. But I know that, you know, even in our space here, there's a galvanizing approach. Everybody's rooting for each other. Everybody's rooting for each other in the areas of life that I'm surrounded by. So I would like to see that, you know, play itself out in different counties and states and countries and around the world, and you know, use this as an opportunity to grow. I think we are going to come out of this, and there's going to be new ways of thinking. And I don't mean that like watch out, danger. There's a new way of thinking, but more proactive, productive, positive, results-driven, integrity-based outcomes.
Wow, it is a very beautiful vision. Thank you so much for sharing that, because, you know, I feel like you bring in us the positive side of it, acknowledging that the desperation and the tragic part that is happening for many people, and the uncertainty, but still we can create visions of where are we going to be when it all ends. We can actually come through as better humans, as better communities.
Yes.
Which that drives me, and I feel my heartfelt feeling is that it probably drives your life as well, to see
yes.
those visions.
Yes.
Which I want to really deeply acknowledge and thank you, and thank you for your big heart and opening and sharing all those pieces of incredible wisdom.
Yep.
So, and if you were to, you know, if you were to leave us with some empowering message that you really want people to kind of grab and get that and have it sink in, what would you say?
Wake up. Wake up. Control your outcome by controlling the things you can control. And that's how you view every single situation. The way you get there is through meditation, proper questions, reading, watching videos, writing out the message, repeating the message in a mirror so it gets into your nervous system. Look to go help any single person you can anywhere, even on the street, bring a dinner, make a phone call, listen to somebody. And I think if you do that every day, every single day, you know, if you grow 1% a day by doing that every day for 365 days, that's like a 3,000% growth.
Yes, 3,000% growth.
If you did it if you grew 1% a day by giving and contributing 365 days later, it's over 3,000 from a growth. If I was to apply that to finance, if you know, if it improved 1% a day, it's over 3,600% growth overall.
There we go. Wow. Just wanted to say, Vivian Guzman saying, Rob and Monica, thank you for your time, candor, care, clarity, insight, and uplift. Well,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your beautiful question, Vivian. Well, thank you all for participating. I believe there's going to be people watching the replay. We're going to post it on Facebook, and I would like to encourage you to reach out to Rob. And you know, he is there to help you. I know he's doing that from the depth of his heart, and
Yes.
his deep, extensive wisdom, experience, and expertise. So, Rob, do you can you share with us what would be the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, info at epicwm as in Mary.com, info at epicwm.com.
Okay, I'm going to write this down. epicwm.com. Great.
Yeah.
So
Info at epicwm.com.
Okay, the email here is posted. I'm going to share the recording and the video with all of you, so you can rewatch it. Invite your friends, please, to watch that, because Rob provided a huge amount of value, wisdom, guidance, and a large, bigger perspective and a long view for us, which is so crucially important. And I want to acknowledge just that breath of fresh air that you brought, talking about money. Most people are scared to talk about money.
Yes.
But we can shift that perspective. And I am so honored, so grateful. And I look forward to, you know, looking up for your guidance in this beautiful community of Unblinded. And so honored to have been able to speak with you. And again, this is Monica, Empower Your Health, Empower Your Life TV, where we bring value to individuals and communities by interviewing powerful leaders like Rob Gil. This has been a true honor to speak with Rob Gil today. And I appreciate you so much. Please reach out and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.